Papiamento or Papiamentu is the most widely spoken language on the Caribbean ABC Islands, having official status in Aruba and Curaçao. The language is also recognized on Bonaire by the Dutch government. Papiamento is a language derived from African and Portuguese languages with some influences from American Indian languages, English, Dutch and Spanish. History. The precise historical origins of Papiamento have not been established. Its parent language is Iberian, but scholars dispute whether Papiamento is derived from Portuguese or from Spanish. A summary of the century-long debate on Papiamento's origins is provided in Jacobs. Historical constraints, core vocabulary and grammatical features that Papiamento shares with Cape Verdean Creole suggest that the basic ingredients are Portuguese, and that other influences occurred at a later time. The name of the language itself comes from papaya, pap, or pap, a word present in Portuguese and colloquial Spanish. Compare with papaya cristang, a Portuguese-based Creole of Malaysia and Singapore, and the Cape Verdean Creole word papaya scent, or elsewhere in the Caribbean papaya to talk excessively, or to stutter. Spain claimed dominion over the islands in the 15th century, but made little use of them. Portuguese merchants had been trading extensively in the West Indies, and with the union with Castile, this trade extended to the Castilian West Indies, as the Spanish kings favored the free movement of people. In 1634, the Dutch West India Company took possession of the islands, deporting most of the small remaining Arawakan Spanish population to the continent, and turned them into the hub of the Dutch slave trade between Africa and the Caribbean. The first evidence of widespread use of Papiamento in Aruba can be seen through the Curaçao official documents in the early 18th century. In the 19th century, most materials in the islands were written in Papiamento, including Roman Catholic schoolbooks and hymnals. The first Papiamento newspaper was published in 1871 and titled Civilizado. Civilizado is Spanish and Portuguese for civilized, but can also be understood as having a suppressed final R in the word civilizador. An outline of the competing theories is provided below. Local development theory there are various local development theories. One such theory proposes that Papiamento developed in the Caribbean from an original Portuguese African pidgin used for communication between African slaves and Portuguese slave traders, with later Dutch and Spanish influences. Another theory is that Papiamento first evolved from the use in this region since 1499 of linguas and the first repopulation of the ABC Islands by the Spanish by the Copyright de la Real decreed in November 1525, in which Juan Martínez de Ampua Copyright S, factor of Ispar plus or minus Ola, had been granted the right to repopulate the depopulated Islas Inutiles of Aruba, Islas de los Gigantes and Bonaire. Alonso de Cáceres and a young boy from Guanahani who was given the name Diego Cola Cubden. Subsequent expeditions followed the same pattern. In 1499 Alonso de Urgida, Juan de la Cosa and Amerigo Vespuccio took captives to serve as linguas. Urgida actually married his native interpreter and guide, Isabel. http www.historyhumantrial car Latin %20 American %20 tradition PDF. The evolution of Papiamento continued under the Dutch colonization under the influence of the 16th century Dutch Native American and Portuguese/Native American languages, with the second repopulation of these ABC islands under Peter Stuyvesant, who arrived here from the ex-Dutch Brazilian colonies. The Judeo-Portuguese population of the ABC Islands increased substantially after 1654, when the Portuguese recovered the Dutch-held territories in northeast Brazil, causing most of the Portuguese-speaking Jews in those lands to flee from religious persecution. The precise role of Sephardic Jews in the early development is unclear, but it is certain that Jews play a prominent role in the later development of Papiamento. Many early residents of Curaçao were Sephardic Jews either from Portugal, Spain, or Portuguese Brazil. Therefore, it can be assumed that Judeo-Spanish was brought to the island of Curaçao, where it gradually spread to other parts of the community. As the Jewish community became the prime merchants and traders in the area, business and everyday trading was conducted in Papiamento with some Ladino influences. While various nations owned the island and official languages changed with ownership, Papiamento became the constant language of the residents. European and African origin theory. Peter Stuyvesant's appointment to the ABC Islands followed his service in Brazil. He brought Indians, soldiers, etc. from Brazil to Curaçao Section O as well as to New Netherland. In Stuyvesant's resolution book, document number 4B in the Curaçao Section O papers presents the multi-ethnic makeup of the garrison and the use of local Indians as cowboys. Whereas the number of Indians, together with those of Aruba and Bonaire, have increased here by half, and we have learned that they frequently ride. They communicated with each other in Papiamento, language originating when the first Europeans began to arrive on these islands under Ujeda, Juan de Impues, Bejarano and mixing with the natives. Stuyvesant also took some Esopus Indians captives in New Netherland and brought them as slaves to Curaçao Section O. There was little Dutch government activity in the management of DWI because during the period 1568–1648, they were actively fighting for their independence and were not in a position to manage their colonies. A more recent theory holds that the origins of Papiamento lie in the Afro-Portuguese Creoles that arose almost a century earlier, in the west coast of Africa and in the Portuguese Cape Verde Islands. From the 16th to the late 17th century, most of the slaves taken to the Caribbean came from Portuguese trading posts in those regions. Around those ports there developed several Portuguese African pidgins and Creoles, such as Guinea-Bissau Creole, Minor, Cape Verdean Creole, Angola, and Gane. The latter bears strong resemblances to Papiamento. According to this theory, Papiamento was derived from those pre-existing pidgins Creoles, especially Gane, which were brought to the ABC Islands by slaves and/or traders from Cape Verde and West Africa. Some specifically claim that the Afro-Portuguese mother language of Papiamento arose from a mixture of the Minor Pidgin Creole and the Angola Creole. Proponents of this theory of Papiamento contend that it can easily be compared and linked with other Portuguese Creoles, especially the African ones. For instance, compare me or bo. Me is from the Portuguese mim me, and bo is from Portuguese var cubed su. The use of b instead of e is very common in the African Portuguese Creoles. However, because of the similarities between Portuguese and Spanish, it can also be argued that these two words derive from Spanish me, and vos. Papiamento is, in some degree, intelligible with Cape Verdean Creoles and could be explained by the immigration of Portuguese Sephardic Jews from Cape Verde to these Caribbean islands, although this same fact could also be used by dissenters to explain a later Portuguese influence on an already existing Spanish-based Creole. Another comparison is the use of the verb tar and tabertar from vernacular Portuguese tar with verbs where Portuguese does and with others where it does not use it, me tar plus verb, or me tabertar plus verb, also the rule in the Zar pound o Vicent Creole and other Papiamento Cape Verdean Creoles. These issues can also be seen in other Portuguese Creoles, but some are also found in colloquial Spanish. Linguistic and historical ties with Upper Guinea Portuguese Creole. Current research on the origins of Papiamento focuses specifically on the linguistic and historical relationships between Papiamento and Upper Guinea Portuguese Creole as spoken in the Santiago island of Cape Verde and in Guinea-Bissau and Casamance. Elaborating on comparisons done by Martinez and Quint, Jacobs defends the hypothesis that Papiamento is a relixified offshoot of an early Upper Guinea Portuguese Creole variety, transferred from Senegambia to Curaçao Section O in the second half of the 17th century, a period in which the Dutch controlled the harbour of Gora copyright E, just below the tip of the Cape Verde Peninsula. On Curaçao Section O, this variety underwent internal changes as well as contact-induced changes at all levels of the grammar due to contact with Spanish and, to a lesser extent, Dutch as well as with a variety of Kwan and Bantu languages. These changes notwithstanding, the morpho-syntactic framework of Papiamento is still remarkably close to that of the Upper Guinea Creoles of Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau Casamance. Present status equals. Many Papiamento speakers are multilingual and are also able to speak Dutch, English and Spanish. In the Netherlands Antilles, Papiamento was made an official language on March 7, 2007. After its dissolution, The language's official status was confirmed in the Caribbean Netherlands, until January 1, 2011. Since then, Bonaire is the only portion of the Caribbean Netherlands in which it is spoken and recognized. Papiamento has been an official language of Aruba since May 2003. Papiamento is also spoken elsewhere in the Netherlands and on the other Dutch Caribbean islands of Saint Martin, Saba and St. Eustatius by immigrants from Aruba, Bonaire and Curaçao. Venezuelan Spanish and American English are constant influences today. Code switching and lexical borrowing between Papiamento, Spanish, Dutch and English among native speakers is common. This is perceived as a threat to the further development of Papiamento due to a language ideology that is committed to preserving the authentic African or Creole feel of Papiamento. Dialects. Papiamento has two main dialects, one in Aruba and one in Curaçao and Bonaire, with lexical and intonational differences. There are also minor differences between Curaçao and Bonaire. Spoken Papiamento sounds much more like Spanish. The most apparent difference between the two dialects is given away in the name difference. Whereas Curaçao and Bonaire opted for a phonology-based spelling, Aruba uses an etymology-based spelling. Many words in Aruba end with O while that same word ends with U in Curaçao and Bonaire. And even on Curaçao, the use of the U ending is still more pronounced among the Sephardic Jewish population. Similarly, there is also a difference between the usage of K in Curaçao and Bonaire and C in Aruba. For example, phonology equals orthography equals. There are two orthographies, a more phonetic one in Curaçao and Bonaire, and an etymological spelling used in Aruba. Equals vowels and diphthongs equals. Most Papiamento vowels are based on Ibero-Romance vowels, but some are also based on Dutch vowels like ye, a, isha e, u, and or. Papiamento has the following 9 vowels. The orthography of Curaçao has one symbol for each vowel. There are dialects that exist in the island itself. An example is the Aruban word, dollar, which is the same in Curaçao's version, but written differently. The R is silent in certain parts of the island. It is also written without the R. In addition to the vowels listed above, schwa also occurs in Papiamento. The letter E is pronounced as schwa in the final unstressed syllables of words such as agradable and comida. Other vowels in unstressed syllables can become somewhat centralized in rapid casual speech. Equals stress and tone equals. Papiamento is one of only 2 languages worldwide that distinguish both lexical stress and tone and is the only language in the world known to use both stress and prosodic accent. Polysyllabic words that end in vowels are stressed on the next to last syllable. Most words ending in consonants are stressed on the final syllable. There are exceptions. When a word deviates from these rules, the stressed vowel should be indicated by an acute accent mark. The accent marks are often omitted in casual writing. Papiamento words have distinct tone patterns. According to recent linguistic research, there are 2 classes of words, those that typically have rising pitch on the stressed syllable, and those that typically have falling pitch on the stressed syllable. The latter category includes most of the 2-syllable verbs in the language. Any given word's tone contours may change depending on discursive factors such as whether the sentence is affirmative, interrogative, or imperative. Altering tone in Papiamento can distinguish meaning and grammatical function. Compare noun para with verb para. Independently from tone, stress can also be altered. Compare para with para. Papiamento uses prosodic accent. Tone is largely dependent on the grammatical function of the word in sentence. Compare. The following are the grammatical rules of Papiamento intonation. Verbs usually have rising tone. A following adverb receives high intonation. Nouns and adjectives usually have falling tone. A following adjective receives low intonation. In words of more than 3 syllables, grammatical tone or accent will fall on the last stressed syllable. The first stressed syllable receives the opposite tone. For contrast, compare noun knikni falcon with adverb poco slowly. An adverb has rising tone, so a following adjective receives high tone. The adverbs bon and mal, even though they are adjectives, in grammar will always have adverbial, rising tone character. They will always behave like adverbs, even when they qualify nouns. They behave like adverbs even when doubled for emphasis. Note: in all above examples, primary stress remains on the second word, while secondary stress remains on the first word, independently of tone changes. It is thus more accurate to transcribe pa-lu-hal to mbira ront, with bold typing indicating stress and capital letters indicating high-tone syllables. Unstressed syllables tone is dependent on contact syllables. The particle of negation no always receives rising tone. The following verb is inevitably raised in pitch, compare me ta-pa-pia and me no ta-pa-pia. This negating pitch raise is crucial and is retained even after contraction of the particle in informal speech, mean ta-papaya. It is theorized that the unusual presence of both stress and tone in Papiamento is an inheritance of African languages and Portuguese. Lexicon equals vocabulary equals. Most of the vocabulary is derived from Spanish and Portuguese, and most of the time the real origin is unknown due to the great similarity between the two Iberian languages and the adaptations required by Papiamento. A 100 Swadesh list of Papiamento can be found online. Linguistic studies have shown that roughly two-thirds of the words in Papiamento's present vocabulary are of Iberian origin, a quarter are of Dutch origin, some of Native American origin, and the rest come from other tongues. A recent study by Burton Joubert inventoried several hundred words of indigenous Arawak origins. Examples of words of Iberian and Roman, Latin origin, which are impossible to label as either Portuguese or Spanish: por favor si asina d equals please a Euro Spanish Portuguese, por favor, c plus or minus ora equals Mrs., Madam a Euro Spanish, c plus or minus ora. Portuguese, senhora. Que? Equals which. Spanish, a qual. Portuguese, qual. Quanto? Equals how much. A Euro Spanish, a quanto. Portuguese, quanto. While the presence of word final can easily be traced to Portuguese, the diphthongization of some vowels is characteristic of Spanish. The use of is difficult to interpret. Although the two are separate phonemes in standard Portuguese, they merge in the dialects of northern Portugal, just like they do in Spanish. Also, a sound shift could have occurred in the direction of Spanish, whose influence on Papiamento came later than that of Portuguese. Other words can have dual origin, and certainly dual influence. For instance, sobrino sobrino in Portuguese, sobrino in Spanish. The pronunciation of o's is traceable to Portuguese, while the use of n instead of nh in the ending no relates to Spanish. Portuguese origin words: borboleta equals butterfly Euro Portuguese, borboleta. Sapatu equals shoe Euro Spanish, zapato. Portuguese, sapato. Cacha cubed equals dog Euro Spanish, cacaro. Portuguese, cacaro. Zia plus or minus a equals neighbor Euro Spanish, vino, vecina. Portuguese, vecino, vecina. Galia plus or minus a equals chicken Euro Spanish, galina. Portuguese, galina. Guy equals rooster Euro Spanish, gallo. Portuguese, galo. Spanish origin words: ciudad equals city Euro Spanish, ciudad. Portuguese, cidade. Sombra cincarai equals at Euro Spanish, sombrero. Portuguese, cherpa copyright you. Carson equals trousers Euro Spanish, pantala cubed n or colza cubed n. Portuguese, calapica volt poundo. Hector squared mber equals man Euro Spanish, hombre. Portuguese, homem. Dutch origin words: apple equals apple Euro Dutch, app. Blue equals blue Euro Dutch, blow. Bikkie equals book Euro Dutch, boek. Lisa equals to read Euro Dutch, lezen. English origin words: barque equals back, ba squared to equals bottle. Italian origin words: cucina equals kitchen Euro Italian cucina. Spanish cocina. Portuguese cozina. Lanterna lantern equals lanterna Euro Italian lanterna. Spanish linterna. Portuguese, lanterna. Native American words: orcan equals hurricane Euro tano, hurricane. Carib, Irakan, Hirakan. Dutch, Orkaan. Dictionaries GUIA para los españoles plus or minus os habla Papiamento y vice versa, para que los de Curaçao puedan hablar español Euro, author, NN. Publisher, IMPR. Del Comcio. Year, 1876. Possible copyright status, not in copyright. Language, Spanish. Digitizing sponsor, Google Book from the collections of Harvard University Collection, Americana Notes. Cover title, Guía Manual para que los españoles plus o minus os puedan hablar y comprender el Papiamento a cubed patois de Curaçao y vice versa Euro, Gerrit P. Janssen en Debacian Gar Fortman, Diccionario Papiamento Hollands, Curaçao section Ausgenawachtschap der Wetenschappen, 1945, Mansa, Jossie M. Dictionary English Papiamento English. Orange Stod, edition in Classico Diario, Tipmark Diccionario Erotico. A dictionary of all words with an erotic meaning used in Papiamento. Betty Ratzlaff Papiamento Ingalls, Diccionario Bilingual ed. Dos edition. Bonaire, St. John Bonaire, Webster's Online Papiamento a Euro-English Dictionary. Grammar Goilo Papiamento Textbook. Orange Stod, DeWitt Stores NV. Expressions, Hopi Skuma, Tkishukulati, too good to be true. Ainani Porco Surabatar Krill, that is where the problem lies. Sopi Pura Tar Sali Salo, good things take time. Examples. Phrase samples Note, these examples are from Curaçao section No Papiamento and not from Aruba and Papiamento. Kantar by? Or Kantar Kibidna? How are you? Or, how is life? Portuguese, como vi? / como esta a vida? Spanish a car cube mote va? A car cube mote va la vida? Por favor / se asina d, please. Portuguese Spanish por favor, danke, thank you. Dutch, dankje, inda no, not yet. Portuguese inda na poundo, me stimo bo, I love you. Portuguese estimo / ute amu, lager nos bansali. / bansali, let's go out. Spanish a salgamos. Car squared a da skirby me barque masli ha copyright possible. Remember to write me back as soon as possible. Portuguese, record se de me escreverás en que for possible. Bo mama ta masha bonita, your mother is very beautiful. Portuguese to a sua ma pound ea copyright muto bonita. Comparison of vocabularies. This section provides a comparison of the vocabularies of Portuguese, Papiamento and the Portuguese Creoles of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. Spanish and Catalan are also shown for contrast. Santiago Creole variant, writing system used in this example, Alupec, Portuguese expression used in Creole. See also, Afro-Latin American, Creole language, linguistics, Palincaro, Portuguese-based Creole languages, Spanish-based Creole languages. References. Bibliography, Eva Kramer, How to Pave the Way for the Emancipation of a Creole Language. Papiamento, or What Can a Literature Do for Its Language? In Hoogbergen, Wim. Born Out of Resistance. On Caribbean Cultural Creativity. Utrecht, Isa Publications, 1994, 359 euro 365. Eva Kramer, The Standardization of Papiamento, New Trends, Problems and Perspectives. In Dazzy Gross, Anna Alice / Lorenza Mondadar. Les Langues Minoritaires en Context. Minderheiten sprachen in Kontext. BD. I les Langues Minoritaires enter Diversity. Copyright A Standardization. Minderheiten sprachen zwischen Vielfalt und Standardisierung. Neutre Cent Telephone Institut de Linguistique de la Université. Copyright de Neutre Cent Tel, 1999, 59 euro 74. Eva Kramer, Papiamento, Cultural Resistance, and Socio-Cultural Challenges, the ABC Islands in a Nutshell. In Journal of Caribbean Literatures 5/1, 2007, 73 euro 93. Quint, Nicholas 2000. Le Cap Verdean, Origins et Devenir da Euro Unregistered Trademark une langue mar copyrightis. Paris, La Euro Unregistered Trademark Harmattan, Jacobs, Bart 2008. Papiamento, a diachronic analysis of its core morphology. Phosis 2008, 59 €82. Jacobs, Bart 2009a. OE The Upper Guinea Origins of Papiamento. Linguistic and Historical Evidence C Euro. Diachronica 26-3, 319 €379. Jacobs, Bart 2009b. The Origins of Old Portuguese Features in Papiamento. In, Nicholas Faraclas, Ronald Severing, Krista Wager and Lisbeth Echteld, Leeward Voices, Fresh Perspectives on Papiamento and the Literatures and Cultures of the ABC Islands. Volume 1, 11 €38. Curaçao Section O, FPI Una. Jacobs, Bart 2012. Origins of a Creole, The History of Papiamento and Its African Ties. Berlin, De Goethe. Ephraim Frank Martinus The Kiss of a Slave, Papiamento's West African Connections. University of Amsterdam Press. Gary Foss The Story of Papiamento. New York, University Press of America, John H. Home Pigeons and Creoles Volume 1. Theory and Structure. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, Sidney Jalbert and Matthias Pearl. The Portuguese Language on Cura Picavolta Poundo and Its Role in the Formation of Papiamento, Journal of Caribbean Literatures, 5-1, 43 €60. John McHutter The Missing Spanish Creoles, Recovering the Birth of Plantation Contact Language. Berkeley, University of California Press. Gerard van Buit and Sidney M. Jalbert Stemmen uit het verleden, Indians Wooden in het Papiamento. Curaçao Section O. External links and further reading, general linguistic and historical information on Papiamento, including an unedited poem from the Curaçao Section AO and poet Lucille Berry Hasseth, Papiamento Official Aruba Government Portal, Papiamento a Euro-English Dictionary, Newspaper from Aruba, website for learning Papiamento, link to YouTube channel Henkes Papiamento, La Prensa a leading Curaçao Section O newspaper and Papiamento Hazabocos 1 News in Papiamento, Papiamento a Euro History and Grammatical Features, Bible excerpt in Papiamento, Papiamento Translator a simple online translator, Papiamentu a blog on learning Papiamento for English speakers, Papiamentu Tour a blog for English-speaking students of Papiamento, 4. A discussion about the origins of Papiamento, see Papiamentu Facts, an essay by Attila Narin. A Language Thrives in Its Caribbean Home article by Simon Romero in the New York Times July 4, 2010.